Hello everyone, my name is Raleigh and welcome to my first Pokemon themed video. So it's a new year and I have recently stated that I would like to kind of branch out, do some other franchises, do some other videos on something that isn't related to Guild Wars 2. And the first thing that I picked was Pokemon because we've been playing a lot of Pokemon games, and I actually, with the announcement of Pokemon Legends Arceus, I had a thought that I would like to run by you guys, a little theory. For anyone that has watched my stuff on this channel, you guys know I love my theories. I love to just sit there and theorize about stuff, come up with ideas. So let's get right into it. When Pokemon Legends Arceus was announced, I thought about what that really means for the Pokemon series as a whole. For the first time in a mainline Pokemon game, rather than just going to a new location in the same time period, we're actually going to one of the areas we already know, but just in a long past era. And I thought about what that could mean for the Pokemon franchise as a whole. Now, when we're talking about going to different locations, nowadays we always talk about Pokemon variants, right? Every time we get a new region, we're going to be talking about what kind of variants we're getting. And even now, going to the Hisui region, we actually are getting different variants. And I thought about this, and I thought about what it could mean if we're going to different time periods, what that could mean for variants. And interestingly enough, the Pokemon franchise has already touched on those possibilities quite a few times. Now, the first thing that immediately came to my mind actually was the Pokemon anime. Now, in the original first season of the Pokemon anime, in episode 73, Ash and his friends actually go to this dig site for the researchers. And they actually, in this episode, I'm going to keep it kind of short here, I'm not going to tell you guys really what happens that episode. They find an ancient Gengar, an ancient Alakazam, an ancient Jigglypuff. And they actually look different. They have like paintings on them. And these are like ancient versions. They're much bigger than their current time counterparts. And that's really interesting because it's not something that's really ever been touched on, but it's something that I feel like could be touched on now because we're talking about going to different time periods. So what could that mean for variants in the Pokemon franchise? Could that mean that we're going to see other ancient variants? We already have seen actual primal forms of two legendary Pokemon, Primal Kyogre and Primal Groudon, which went through the primal reversion, which brought them back to their original strength, so to say. They brought out the primal strength that they had. And all of those things hint towards, hey, maybe Pokemon didn't always look the same. Hey, maybe there's certain time periods where Pokemon looked differently. I had this whole theory before we even got the announcement of the Hisuian Voltorb. And actually, that is also a supporting pillar of my theory because the Hisuian Voltorb has a different makeup. It's not made out of a metal. It's supposed to represent a Pokeball, but it's also not made out of what a Pokeball is made out of. It's actually made out of wood, which those Pokeballs from back then are actually made out of. So it's interesting to think about what Pokemon could have looked like a long time ago. Now, this would be cool because the whole concept would be based around time rather than space. Most variants are always based around the location, which is the space. Now we're talking about time. We're talking about, oh, this was a long time ago. This is why that Pokemon looks the same. And if we take this theory a little bit further, it actually prompts a lot more questions. What is it that these Pokemon used to look like before they quote unquote evolved into the forms that they're now? Or what is it that could have influenced this change? Different time periods like the Ice Age or the Age of the Dinosaurs. Those things could have all influenced the Pokemon if we're talking about going back to prehistoric times or old times. We're going back to almost like a feudal era in the region of Hisui, but what if we're talking about going back further and even further? Now, all of this is something that I feel like the developers specifically for the Pokemon games, Game Freak, should really look at, really consider. And I think it's something that they have been considering because with the release of Sword and Shield, or even just the announcement of it, and them telling us that we're not getting all of the available Pokemon, which is now like 900 Pokemon, the community was outraged. They were really mad because they thought this was a mainline Pokemon game on the big console, Nintendo Switch, and people were really expecting to see all of the Pokemon. Now, we didn't get that, and that is because it is so much work for them to integrate all of the Pokemon into the games. So, rather than really going for making new Pokemon, we have 900 Pokemon. We have a lot to take from. We can talk about prehistoric versions, or even different versions, and we don't necessarily have to go back in time. What if we are talking about going forward in time? What if we're talking about a futuristic Pokemon setting, where maybe Pokemon could have evolved some other way, and they now look differently than what they are in the current timeline, because they've changed over time. Evolution is a thing, and for Pokemon, that's a natural thing anyways, because there's evolution lines for most of the Pokemon. But what if the actual forms change themselves over time? And that would be really cool, because we have things like teleportation in the Pokemon games. You look at the new Pokemon Snap, for example. There's teleportation. You can teleport all around the different islands and stuff. What if there's some kind of mainline game where we can actually travel in time? There's a time machine, and we can actually travel into the distant past or the far off future. To me, that's a very interesting thought, and it's something that I would really hope the developers to look at. To really say, hey, we have more than enough Pokemon, we can just make different forms of these Pokemon. And you can pretty much reuse a lot of the skeletons for the models from these same Pokemon. You just make them look differently. And that would save them a lot of trouble, a lot of time, and I think a lot of people would enjoy that. I think the variants have been received very well, most of them anyways, and I think that it would be really cool to explore what possibilities we have with having different variants across timelines. Now, I also want to touch on something that came up when I kind of thought about this theory, and that is, what about fossil Pokemon? Fossil Pokemon were these ancient Pokemon that were fossilized, and now in the current time, we use machines to revive them pretty much. But that got me thinking, what if when we actually use machines to revive them, we don't revive them really like they used to look like, or maybe we don't revive them with the correct typing. Maybe there were different typings. We don't know really the process of reviving fossils. We don't know what these professors that we meet in the games that do that, what machines they use, what they utilize, how this whole process works. So that got me even thinking further. I compared it to something that we see in movies, specifically Jurassic Park. In Jurassic Park, they have this whole theory of bringing back the dinosaurs by adding frog DNA to the DNA of the dinosaurs to complete the strand of DNA. And I don't know how that all technically works, and I know that that's not actually physically possible, but what if that concept applies to Pokemon as well? That would mean that we're adding other DNA to these Pokemon to bring them back to life. So what if adding that DNA actually changes their typing or changes what they look like? I understand that a lot of the fossils actually kind of show what the Pokemon looks like, but some of them just show body parts or certain areas of the Pokemon, and they could look different, and they could have whole different forms. So what if we're talking about a game that takes place a long time ago in ancient Kanto, where these fossil Pokemon were actually alive and they were walking around, and we can actually see them everywhere, and they're very common Pokemon. Maybe that's why there's so many fossils left over, because those were the most common Pokemon. Now, I do want to talk about something else, for example, and that's legendary Pokemon. And I have a little theory about one set of trios that we have that I could totally see have different forms, and that's the legendary dog trio from Generation 2. Now we have Entei, Suicune, and Raikou. Now those three Pokemon were all revived by Ho-Oh after the tower burned down in Ecruteak City and they died. Three mysterious dog Pokemon, and they were then revived by Ho-Oh, and they're now Entei, Suicune, and Raikou, and they roam the lands. Now what if those dog Pokemon that burned down in the tower weren't necessarily Suicune, Entei, and Raikou? What if they were just by Ho-Oh, the dead bodies of these dog Pokemon were infused with the spirits of Raikou, Entei, and Suicune? Maybe ancient spirits from a long time ago of dog Pokemon that used to exist, and the dog Pokemon that actually maybe died in the tower were Flareon, and Jolteon, and Vaporeon, because we do see those in the original Generation 2. We actually see those evolutions in that town. We actually fight the Kimono sisters, and they have the evolutions. So what if there was three Pokemon, three evolutions, the Flareon, Jolteon, and Vaporeon, that actually passed away in the tower and were then revived by Ho-Oh by infusing ancient spirits of Entei, Raikou, and Suicune? The typing is the the same because it's a fire, it's an electric, and it's a water type. But what if these ancient spirits were actually different typings? So we could have ancient forms of Raikou, Entei, and Suicune. Entei could be a rock type, and Suicune maybe an ice type, and Jolteon could be like a grass type. And just because they were infused into the other Pokemon, they didn't change their typing, they just took on the forms of these Pokemon. So we would have these ancient forms that are actually different types. Now all of that is probably a little bit out there, and it's just this random theory that I came up, but it's something that I would really like to see the mainline games of the Pokemon franchise kind of go to. Because honestly, at this point, redoing the same formula over and over again got kind of old, and they tried to do it differently with Pokemon Sun and Moon, and that kind of failed. I feel like not a lot of people enjoyed that formula, but what if we're talking about going back to other times? And we don't necessarily have to have one game where we visit all of these different times, but what if we have one game that deals with Ancient Kanto, and then one game that deals with future Unova, and kind of can tie it in that way. Now all of this was just pretty much a random theory they came up with, but I really like the approach that the developers are taking to kind of branch out and do different things with the Pokemon franchise. And I can really see this becoming a thing where they branch out into other time periods. And that's pretty much all I have for you guys. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this theory, and if you guys have your own thoughts, let me know down below. And I just want to point out here at the end of the video that I do stream every Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday right here on YouTube. We are doing Pokemon on Sundays, and I'm going to be doing Elden Ring once that comes out on Mondays. I do Guild Wars once a week as well. I also want to say that I have currently going on the Legend of Dragoon playthrough that I'm doing on my channel, so if you like that game, go check that out. We do have a Discord server if you guys want to chat with me about whatever. You can always do that, and that's going to be it from me for today. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye guys!